John Bolton has a book coming out in the relatively near future, and he wants to get you excited about it. And so he's teased something that's gonna be revealed in it, in the manuscript, which Bolton circulated to White House officials as part of a standard pre-publication review process. Bolton described the private conversation he had with Donald Trump in August about Ukraine. Trump told Bolton that, quote, he wanted to continue freezing $391 million in security assistance to Ukraine until officials there helped with investigations into Democrats, including the Bidens. So Bolton is apparently asserting in this manuscript that the quid pro quo was as laid out and clear as it could possibly be. You don't get the aid until you investigate my political rivals. That said, it is John Bolton. And so there's a lot of contextual stuff we need to take stock of. What do you both think about this?
Well, this is the evidence that Trump did the bad thing. I think we're not shocked to find out that he did the bad thing, but turns out he did do the bad thing. But again, I find it so hard to follow this impeachment story that closely because you already know the end. It's like, how can you get invested in a book, a very long book, that you already know the end? It's very difficult to really get excited about what comes next.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, Trump's still going to be the president, and he's not going to get removed. But yeah, I mean, this Bolton thing, it's about as clear as you can get. And the sad thing is that, given the nature of the impeachment process and who controls the Senate, it's not going to matter at all.
I think maybe because I gave up a long time ago on Republicans doing anything that had anything to do with actually representing Americans. It's no longer disappointing. It's just now what is the strategy? And I think I mentioned it last week so Democrats' approach has to be, okay, let the public know what's happening since Republicans don't want to hear it. And I think they've been doing pretty good at that. So when it comes to this also coming out, it doesn't really matter to me whether or not Bolton testifies. It matters to me personally, but it doesn't matter to me as far as whether or not it's gonna change anything. So I mean, I think we're gonna go into also how, oh my God, this bombshell has suddenly allowed some Republicans to be a little bit shaky in their resolve. No, it's not. No, it's not. Nothing will ever make them shaky in their resolve to continue to kneel and continue to kiss the ring of Donald Trump. It's gonna happen that way from now on. So the only thing left to do is to convince the American people who are listening and not watching Fox News to see, okay, it's an indictment now of the entire party. They're covering up for it, and we're gonna illustrate to you what it is that they're covering up.
Yeah, well look, like it feels like forever ago, AOC laid out that we have to get them on the record, that we can't necessarily get them to act like responsible politicians that give a damn about American democracy, but we can at least get them to vote. And then we can cite those votes in the future. It seems like we all three agree that not much can come out that matters because we already believe we know what happened. We don't necessarily be convinced of that. We think that the people who do need to be convinced of that can't be convinced of that. Right. But hopefully there are some Americans that are, maybe they're not sure. If there were to be testimony, that could matter. Maybe matter insofar as it would change their opinion, not that it would necessarily change a single Republican senator's mind.
Well, the thing about impeachment, if you know that it's not gonna actually happen, like if you know that Trump isn't gonna actually,
at the very least.
That's what I mean. If you know that that's not gonna happen, then the only point of pursuing impeachment is some sort of public education, right? To get the public aware of something that's going on. And that's why I think the Democrat strategy of narrowing the impeachment focus to this Ukraine business is so bizarre because, I mean, fundamentally, it's such a weirdly small issue compared to the vast array of crimes that are going on in the Trump administration. I mean, this Ukraine thing is like what, his like 287th worst crime, maybe? You know what I mean? Like
I have it in the 160s.
It's in the 160s. Yeah, I mean, we could argue about that. We could spend a whole hour arguing about that, but. It's bizarre to me that they didn't pursue the sort of blatant corruption, the blatant self-dealing and enrichment that Trump has used the White House to enrich himself personally.
Yeah.
And in that sense, that could have been a process that would have actually become a public spectacle. Turning this into an indictment of how the ruling class uses all kinds of self-dealing and nepotism to basically entrench its own power and privilege. Instead, this whether we withheld $300 million in Ukraine aid to investigate Joe Biden and Hunter Biden's job in Ukraine, which by the way is 100% corrupt. It might not be illegal, but it's 100% inappropriate and corrupt.
I think they thought that this is a very understandable, personal, obviously out of bounds thing to do.
Is it?
Conditioning
I mean, I don't think
American
it's that
foreign
obvious.
policy on personal political gain.
It happens all the time. It happens all the time, and much worse. And there's, I mean, whether it was the Iran Contra affair, which is like
thankfully that was a big scandal.
But it didn't. It didn't become an impeachment process. Neither did Nixon's secret dealings with the Viet Cong in order to delay the peace process to help his own presidential campaign. I mean, the examples are beyond. I mean, whether it was or George W. Bush lying about Iraq. I mean, come on, like that's a billion times worse.
Sign me up for all of those.
But that was not an impeachable offense, apparently.
Yeah.
So this one is it's relatively small compared to, I don't know, using the presidency to enrich yourself personally, like
really?
that. It's so
we've been hearing about that since the beginning.
Hour.
But it's not part of the
you know what the American people said to that? He's a businessman. That's what he does. That's the problem. Is those things were floated, I feel like, maybe not by establishment Democrats or at least the Nancy Pelosi's and Chuck Schumer's of the world, but after it was floated, the American people in general, I mean, not everyone, of course, was like, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, he's doing that, that's pretty bad. But it didn't seem to feel the sting of that as much. And I wonder if any of those would have happened. And it goes back to, all those things are very valid points, but I think it goes back to, no matter what it is, because we're gonna argue between 160 to 300 of the things he's done wrong. I forget the second number, but of those things he's done wrong, the general consensus is, I don't care, from elected Republicans and his Republican base as far as the voters. So no matter which one of these things you brought up, the same answer would have been la 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 la.
Well, I do find it interesting that it's not a big issue amongst the Democrats running for president. That it's not a big issue on the Democratic campaign trail at the moment.
Well, they're concerned about alienating potential voters because that's what election handlers like to tell you.
But this is the whole point of this is to become a political issue, right? The whole point of impeachment, if you know it's not going to actually result in impeachment or removal from office, is to make it a potent political issue for your own side to win power.
Yeah, I think that like Bloomberg has it in a lot of his ads. I think that most of the other Democrats. Exactly. Well, he's at like 9% in one of the national polls. I don't know. He'll spend another 500 million if you taunt him. So take it easy. I think that the rest of them are satisfied too for now. Well, the one I support, contrasts himself with the others by talking about what he wants to actually accomplish. But I have no doubt that if Bernie becomes the nominee and it gets the general election, he is going to be pushing the corruption angle, I think, pretty hard against Donald Trump.
I don't think Bernie will talk about Ukraine ever in the campaign.
No, I don't think Ukraine specifically, but I think he will talk about how corrupt and lawless Donald Trump has been.
Sure.
He talks about him often as the most dishonest, worst president that we've ever had and all that. And really fast though, just to be fair, Donald Trump does say that Bolton is lying effectively, so let me give you that. I never told John Bolton that the aid to Ukraine was tied to investigations into Democrats, including the Bidens. In fact, he never complained about this at the time of his very public termination. If John Bolton said this, it was only to sell a book. I think it was at least partly to sell a book. I don't think it was only to sell a book.
Well, part of what happened, I mean, I guess first of all, anytime anyone who's being accused of something, especially this president, that their response is, no, that's untrue, because if I said yes, who does that? Which person that's being brought up against these types of charges would be like, yeah, you know what? All these years I've been denying that I've done anything wrong, but that whole John Bolton thing came out. I guess you guys got me. It's never gonna happen. So a lot of times that's the basis for the defense is, well, the president said he didn't have anything to do with it, and neither did anyone else that supports him. Okay,
yeah,
I could have told you that part. So that's the defense, is just, I said so. And we're supposed to believe that.
Yeah.
So I wonder at what point people are gonna have to get beyond that, and the point of having a trial and evidence put in front of you is to determine that, rather than just believe the two sides and what they said happened.
If it's two people and they're disagreeing, hey, we got a trial. Come in, both of you under oath. You know, that's the American way. Our members are already weighing in on this with Kinetics saying if Bolton really wanted to share what he knows, he'd go on TV and tell every news station what he knows. Look, if he doesn't testify, I think that's very likely to happen. It might be on Maddow, honestly.
Bolton loves to go on TV. So he was like the most visible TV guy.
He worked for Fox News for a number of years.
So I guess I'm the pessimist here, but even if he gets subpoenaed and it somehow gets allowed from even testifying, it's gonna be underwhelming. It always is.
Oh yeah.
Because as a lot of
the Mueller report all over again.
Yeah. So as we'll get, a lot of Republicans like to say, hey, suddenly all these libs and these progressives and Democrats suddenly love John Bolton. No, they don't. Yeah. when something comes out and the truth is there, you want that aspect to be revealed. No one's gonna say, oh yeah, man, hey, John Bolton for president, Democrats. That's not gonna happen that way. So that's just something to distract from the actual the events that are going on. But if someone brings information, we wanna see it. But let's not forget, and which gives, I guess, a little bit of credence to their argument, we're going a little bit too much in on what we expect from John Bolton. He's still John Bolton. Let's not forget, he still is a member of this corrupt and self-serving Republican Party. So who knows how much of a milquetoast thing he's gonna have to say when someone asks him direct questions. He may be very evasive about it.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, Jayar. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.